Hi there, and welcome back to Reddit Confessions. Tonight's story? Buckle up, because it starts with an open door and ends with a man questioning everything he thought was real. There were 50 people in that house. Music, laughter, people posing with champagne glasses like they were in some lifestyle magazine. But none of that matters now, because in that exact moment, my wife was in the side room of that party, and she wasn't wearing a single thing. And the door wasn't even locked. I wasn't supposed to see it. I wasn't even supposed to be there, technically. She said it was invite only, one of those sleek, exclusive company events. But when she left the house that evening wearing a red dress I'd never seen before, something in my stomach twisted. I told her I had to work late. I didn't. I followed her. I don't say that proudly. I say that because I wish I hadn't. The house was one of those rented mansions in the hills. The kind with walls that reflect more than they hide. I parked 2 blocks away and walked. Told the valet I was someone's assistant. Slipped in through the back while everyone else was fixated on the rooftop DJ. For 10 minutes I just watched. I saw her laughing with a man I didn't recognize. Tall, expensive suit. Hands that lingered too long on her wrist. She leaned into him like gravity had changed. Like she had forgotten how to stand upright around me. And then, as if choreographed, they slipped through a hallway and vanished behind a set of frosted glass doors. I knew I shouldn't follow. I knew, but I did. And that door, that damn door was just slightly ajar. Not even enough to creak. Just enough to invite. Inside was low light, velvet cushions, a table of untouched hors d'oeuvres. Her shoes were by the wall. Her dress was curled on a chair like it had been discarded mid-laugh. She was on the couch, knees on either side of him, her back arched in a way I hadn't seen in years. And the sound she made? I used to think that sound was mine. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I stood in the hallway, not a husband, just a ghost in a blazer. And when she finally looked up, it wasn't fear in her eyes. It was boredom. Seriously? She said. You followed me here? That was the moment the floor of my life fell out from under me. But that was only the beginning. I didn't storm in. I didn't shout. I didn't demand explanations. I didn't tear down the walls or flip a table like you might expect in a story like this. I just closed the door. Slowly. Quietly. As if not making a sound would undo what I'd just seen. But the sound that echoed inside me, the sound of whatever was left of our marriage snapping, was deafening. I don't remember walking down the hallway. I just remember gripping the stair railing too hard and nearly slipping because my palm was sweating. There was a couple laughing in the kitchen about some influencer's outfit. A guy passed me a drink like I belonged there. I took it. I held it like it meant something. Like it made me invisible. And then I left. I didn't take her car. I didn't text her. I didn't say a single word. I walked 2 blocks in complete silence to where I'd parked under a crooked street lamp, got into my truck, and just sat there for 27 minutes, staring at the steering wheel like it had the answers. My phone buzzed twice, once from an unknown number, then from her. I didn't check either. Instead, I opened the glove compartment and took out the envelope I'd put there earlier that day. Inside was a brochure. Tiny, hopeful thing. Fertility counseling options, Central Oregon. I was going to show it to her in the morning. I had even circled 2 clinic names. I tore it in half without thinking, because the truth hit me like a freight train. She never wanted this life with me anymore. Not the quiet dinners. Not the idea of a baby. Not even the idea of us. She had been slipping away in pieces, like sand through a screen door, and I hadn't noticed until she was gone. And what hurts the most? She smiled when I saw her. Not in kindness. Not in embarrassment. But like she was relieved. Like the burden of pretending had finally been lifted. And that broke me. I didn't go home that night. I drove to a motel an hour out of town. The kind where the vending machine buzzes louder than the television. I sat on the bed in my work clothes, still wearing the cologne she once said made me smell like a man who reads books in cafes. I looked at myself in the mirror across from the bed and felt like I was staring at a stranger who had been politely evicted from his own life. Somewhere around 3 a.m., I finally checked my phone. 5 missed calls. 1 voicemail. A single text. Dalton, grow up. We'll talk when you're done being dramatic. Dramatic. That's what she called me. Like I had thrown a tantrum because I found my wife naked with another man at a party she lied about attending alone. As if my entire world collapsing in the space of 10 seconds was somehow an overreaction. And I know how this sounds. I know I sound pitiful, weak, but I'm not telling this story to be brave. I'm not telling it to prove a point. I'm telling it because I need to understand how I missed it. How I became a background character in my own marriage. How I became the last to know. And I think deep down, she wanted me to know. That's why she didn't lock the door. That's why she looked straight at me and didn't flinch. Because when someone stops loving you, they don't always walk out the front door. Sometimes they just leave it open wide enough for you to walk in and see the truth for yourself. And that's exactly what I did. When I finally walked through the front door the next morning, it didn't feel like I was coming home. It felt like I was breaking into a stranger's house. One I used to live in. One that still had my name on the mailbox but none of my presence inside. The air was stale, quiet, too still for a place that was once full of the soft sounds of life. The hum of her music in the bathroom, the clink of coffee mugs in the sink, the dull thud of her heels on the hardwood floor. Now, it felt like a museum exhibit called Marriage, Formerly Occupied. Her coat was gone. The red dress wasn't crumpled in the hamper like I expected. Her phone charger was missing. Even the toothbrush from the holder, hers, the one with the gold bristles I always teased her about, wasn't there. I didn't call out for her. I just stood in the hallway, listening to the kind of silence that hurts your ears. The kind that screams louder than shouting. On the kitchen counter sat a note. Not even handwritten, just typed, printed, and taped like a hotel checkout form. Dalton, I needed space. Don't make this harder than it already is. I'll reach out when I've had time to think. Please respect that. L. No love. No sorry. Not even a see you later. Just a directive, cold and clinical like a memo from HR. She had packed bags. I could see the closet had gaps where her favorite coats used to hang. The dresser drawers were disturbingly light. Even the photo of us from our 5th anniversary trip to Cannon Beach, the one she always insisted stay on the mantel, was gone. I stood in the center of the living room like an idiot, my keys still in my hand, my mouth dry. I felt like I was going to throw up but couldn't. And then something hit me. The safe. The small one we kept hidden behind the laundry closet. I had never had a reason to check it before. It just kept our passports, some emergency cash, a few family papers. But something told me to open it. Some cruel little whisper from the universe. So I did. And what I found confirmed what I hadn't dared to suspect yet. Empty. Everything. Gone. Passports. The savings envelope. The emergency $3,500 we had stashed away for just in case. All of it vanished. I sat down on the floor right there in the laundry room. Legs stretched out like a stunned cartoon character. Couldn't think. Couldn't breathe right. Couldn't understand how this escalated so far, so fast. Last week she was kissing me on the cheek before work. This week, she emptied the safe and ran. She didn't just cheat. She evacuated. Like I was some kind of sinking ship she'd been preparing to abandon for months. Stocking the lifeboat while I fixed the leaks. I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. I texted once. Nothing dramatic, just, "Did you take the money?" She read it. Never replied. That silence was worse than any insult she could have thrown at me. By mid-afternoon, I was in our bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, still wearing the same clothes from the night before. I didn't cry. Not yet. The pain was too sharp for tears. It just sat in my chest like a cinder block. I looked around the room, expecting some detail to comfort me. But the more I stared, the more I noticed things had been disappearing for weeks. Books she claimed she lost. Jewelry she told me she left at her sister's. Boxes that had seasonal clothes in the garage. All gone now. I didn't lose her last night. I lost her a long time ago. I was just too blind to see it. That night I couldn't sleep. I just laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan spinning like a clock I couldn't stop. And the question kept coming back louder than the silence. Why didn't she just tell me she wanted to leave? Why orchestrate some twisted performance at a party? Why wait until I caught her naked with another man to make it final? Unless she wanted me to walk in. She wanted it to be irreversible. She didn't leave quietly. She lit a fire and made sure I stood in the smoke. And somewhere out there, she was probably drinking wine and laughing like it was just another Thursday. I didn't leave the house for 3 days. Didn't answer my phone. Didn't eat much. I think I had some crackers and half a banana at some point, but that's about it. I just sort of existed. There was no rhythm to anything. Time stopped feeling real. The sunlight coming through the blinds felt like a personal insult, and her scent still clung to the pillows, which felt cruel, like she'd evaporated into the air just enough to haunt it. What kept me from completely losing it was a single thought that wouldn't let go. Someone at that party saw what happened. Someone knew before I did. And that someone had stood there, drink in hand, nodding along while my marriage bled out behind a half-closed door. So on the 4th day, I got in my truck and went looking for someone who might give a damn. There was one name I remembered from the party chatter, Nicolette. She was one of Leona's co-workers. I had only met her once before at a company brunch, but she'd been oddly kind to me that day. She complimented the dumb paper tie I wore as a joke, laughed too hard at my corny stories, and even whispered, "You're a good one, Dalton. Don't let her steamroll you." I didn't understand it then, but I do now. She was listed in Leona's phone as Nico Speech Balloon. I found her number by sheer luck, still saved in our shared Google contacts. I sent her a short message. I didn't ask questions. I didn't beg. I just wrote, "You saw what happened. Please." She responded 10 minutes later. "Come to the bakery on 5th before 4 p.m. Don't bring anyone. Don't be late." That bakery used to be our Sunday morning spot, mine and Leona's. Funny how betrayal circles back to old memories like it's trying to poison everything. When I walked in, Nicolette was already sitting in the far corner, coffee in hand, wearing sunglasses even though it was overcast. She looked up at me like I was a sick dog she wasn't sure she wanted to pet. But her tone was calm, almost pitying. "I figured you'd show up eventually," she said. I sat down, too tired to pretend I had dignity left. "I just need to know how long it's been going on. Please." She didn't play coy, didn't ask me to define it. She just sipped her coffee and stared at me for a long second before saying, 3 months, maybe 4. Started at some stupid conference in Phoenix. I didn't even know until she started taking fake calls outside and coming back in with her lipstick smudged. I felt my jaw clench hard enough that it hurt. "And you didn't think to tell me?" She scoffed. "Dalton, you're sweet, but you're blind. Everyone knew she was done. You didn't notice she stopped wearing her ring? You didn't see her flirt at company dinners? You were always the guy sitting in the corner, acting proud just to be invited." That stung. Because it was true. I used to tell myself I was giving her space, or letting her shine. But the truth was, I stopped being her partner and started being her shadow. And shadows don't get explanations, they get left behind. Nicolette leaned in slightly, her voice lower. "Look, I'm not defending her. What she did at the party, that was cold, cruel. But she wanted out and didn't know how to say it. And when people like her get bored, they don't break up, they detonate. She just made sure you were holding the match when it happened." I sat there in silence for a while. Everything felt surreal. The smell of pastries, the cheerful hum of background music, the bitter taste of betrayal sitting on my tongue. I don't remember what I said next, if anything. But before I left, Nicolette handed me something that would change everything. It was a flash drive. She used my laptop once, left a bunch of stuff on it. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. There are messages, plans, conversations she had with him. I didn't ask what was on it. I just took it. I didn't even say thank you. Back home, I stared at the flash drive like it might bite me. And in a way, it did. When I finally opened the folder titled Just Work Stuff, I found screenshots of texts between Leona and the guy from the party, Julian. That was his name. Apparently, they had been planning a trip to Belize. She had already booked her flight. Worse, there was a message from a week ago that read, "I just need him to catch me. After that, I'm free." I reread that line 5 times. Then I walked to the bathroom and threw up. Because that was the confirmation. Not only was the affair real, not only had it been long and premeditated, but the moment I caught her was orchestrated. She wanted to break me in a way that she could justify leaving. That way she could play the victim if anyone asked. He followed me. He just couldn't handle the truth. He became unstable. It wasn't a mistake. It was a strategy. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at that screen, but by the time I shut my laptop, the sun had started to go down. The day was ending the same way my marriage had, quietly, and with no intention of coming back. I didn't sleep that night. I tried. I turned off the lights. I shut the laptop. I even laid flat on the bed and counted backward from 100, the way some therapist told me once to calm anxiety. It didn't work. My brain wouldn't shut off. It kept looping the same 3 lines over and over again. I just need him to catch me. After that, I'm free. Free from what, Leona? From our life? From my love? From the man who let you sleep in every Saturday while he made pancakes shaped like dumb hearts? From the guy who memorized the way you liked your coffee just so you'd never have to say it twice? I must have replayed those texts 100 times in my mind. The messages weren't just romantic. They were strategic, clinical. She spoke about me like I was an obstacle, not a husband. She actually told Julian, "Once it's over, he'll probably disappear quietly. He's the type." She was right. I am the type, but I wasn't going to disappear just yet. That morning, around 9 o'clock, I did something I never imagined I'd do. I reached out to Evan, Leona's ex. Yeah, that Evan. The one she used to call her toxic chapter. The one she swore was the worst decision of her 20s. The guy who once smashed her phone during an argument and got a restraining order from his ex-girlfriend 2 years before we met. That Evan. I still had his number buried in my phone. We'd met once at a wedding after-party. Purely by accident, and he'd been oddly calm around me. No tension, no possessiveness. Just cold, observational stares like he was calculating something I didn't understand. I messaged him, "I need 5 minutes of your time. It's about Leona." To my shock, he replied almost instantly, "She finally did it, huh?" Those 5 words hit harder than any confession. We agreed to meet at a grimy little bar near the train station, the kind with flickering lights and dusty booths that smelled like wet vinyl and whiskey. I was already seated with a flat beer when Evan walked in. Same buzz cut, same lazy posture. Still looked like he could break your jaw and apologize for it later. He sat down across from me without a word and lit a cigarette like it was the 1980s. I didn't even bother telling him it was a non-smoking bar. I just stared. "I saw the photos," he said before I could say a word. "She sent them to a mutual friend. Bragged about ending things in style. Said you finally saw the real her." He flicked his ash into a coffee mug. "She wanted it to be loud, public, unforgivable." I felt sick again. "Why?" Evan shrugged. "Leona's never been content unless she's in control. She doesn't leave, she pushes until you do. That way, she gets to be the victim and the architect at the same time." I should have hated him, but I didn't. Not in that moment. I realized we were both soldiers from different wars with the same general. Used, discarded, rewritten. Then Evan leaned forward, his tone dropping like a hammer. "You think this guy, Julian, is the first? He's not. He's just the one she let you find." My breath caught. "There were others?" He nodded slowly. "She cheated on me twice. Once with a coworker, once with a friend of mine. Always made it my fault. I was distant. I was emotionally immature. She'd spin the story until I was apologizing. Sound familiar? I stared at the bottle in front of me like it might answer. He continued, "Leona collects people. She wraps them around her until she's bored. Then she pulls the thread and watches them unravel." I wanted to scream. I wanted to deny it. But the truth is, she had pulled me apart piece by piece, and I hadn't even noticed until there was nothing left. Evan slid something across the table. A small, dog-eared envelope. I kept this. Thought I'd burn it one day. But you might need it more. Inside were printed screenshots. Old ones. Emails. DMs. Dating app messages. Some of them from years ago during the early days of our marriage. Leona using a fake name. Flirting. Arranging hotel meetups. I stopped halfway through reading one when my eyes blurred. I pushed the papers away and just sat there. Numb. So, Evan said after a long silence, "What are you gonna do?" I didn't have an answer, but I knew I couldn't keep letting her write the ending. He nodded as if reading my mind. "You're not the first. Just don't let her turn you into a footnote." That night, I returned home with the envelope. I didn't open it again. I just placed it next to the flash drive on the kitchen counter like I was slowly building a museum of my own failure. And then, I walked to the closet and pulled out something I hadn't touched in a long time. A small wooden box I kept on the top shelf. Inside were 3 things: our wedding vows, handwritten on torn notebook paper, an old hotel keycard from our honeymoon, a photo of Leona kissing me on the cheek while I laughed like a man who believed in forever. I stared at those objects for a long time. For the Reddit Confessions YouTube channel. This part is longer, richly detailed, and progresses the story in an original, highly emotional way. The pacing stays tight and unpredictable, with new twists and deeper emotional stakes. Written in paragraph form, fully compliant with YouTube's monetization policies. Part 6. The fire didn't burn long, but what it revealed stayed. The box didn't burn the way I thought it would. I expected some dramatic crackle, a cleansing roar of flames that would rise and take everything with it. The vows, the photo, the keycard, all of it reduced to nothing. But in reality, it burned slow, quiet, pathetic, even. The wedding vows curled inward like dried leaves. The hotel keycard didn't melt. It just blackened at the edges and stank of old plastic. The photo, the one where I looked happiest, caught last. I watched my own smile vanish under the orange flicker like it had been embarrassed to exist in the first place. When it was done, all I had was a scorched dish from the backyard grill, filled with ash and questions. There was no sense of release, no thunderclap of closure, just smoke clinging to my hoodie and a hollow ache in my chest that no longer felt like heartbreak. It felt like defeat. But that was the moment something shifted in me. Not dramatically. Not like in movies where the sad guy suddenly gets a haircut and reinvents himself overnight. No, it was quieter than that. Like a switch flipped somewhere deep beneath the fatigue and humiliation and said, "She's not coming back. And maybe that's the best thing that could have happened to you." Still, closure doesn't come without interruption. That night, someone knocked on my door. I froze. It wasn't Leona. I would have felt that before I even opened the door. Her presence always had this static charge to it, like entering a room that was about to spark. This was something else. Hesitant, nervous, almost apologetic. I opened the door to find Melanie, her coworker, the one I used to refer to as the giggler because she always laughed at things that weren't funny. I hadn't seen her since the New Year's party we hosted 2 years ago. She looked uncomfortable, not guilty, just strained, like she'd been holding something heavy for too long. "I shouldn't be here," she said before I could speak. "But I didn't know who else would tell you the truth." I didn't invite her in. I just stepped aside and waited for the storm. She held her phone in both hands like it was evidence. "Leona told people you were following her, that you had mental health issues, that you were obsessive and jealous. She said she staged the party scene because she was scared to break it off with you directly." I blinked. "Staged?" Melanie nodded, hesitant. "Julian's not just some guy she was seeing. He's from a PR firm. He knew exactly how to create an image of abuse without anything physical ever happening. They've been shaping this narrative for a while. Your name's already been floated around the office in whispers. Like you were controlling. Like she had to escape." My stomach dropped. She went on, eyes shifting like she didn't want to be seen through the windows. "She even said you once pushed her. Everyone believed her. She cried in the break room. It was convincing. But I saw the messages. The timeline didn't add up. She was too prepared. Too clean. I should have been furious. I should have slammed the door or called my lawyer or shouted something about defamation. But instead, I just asked the one question I hadn't dared to ask anyone until now. Why are you telling me this? Melanie hesitated. Then she pulled something from her purse. A photo. Not printed. Framed. It was from a dinner party we hosted 3 years ago. A group picture. I barely remembered it being taken. But there we all were, me, Leona, Melanie, Julian, a few others. And in the far back corner, half hidden behind a vase of flowers, you could see Melanie, staring directly at me. I know what it's like, she said softly, not looking me in the eye. To love someone who rewrites you into a villain. And with that, she handed me the photo and left. No drama. No offer to help. No pitch for redemption. Just the truth and a door that closed quietly behind her. I stood there holding the photo for what felt like an hour. Not because it meant anything, but because it proved something I hadn't even admitted to myself. Leona hadn't just cheated. She had built an exit strategy so airtight that if I hadn't walked in on her, I might have ended up in a courtroom defending my own sanity. She wanted more than out. She wanted to bury me in the process. That night, I didn't sleep either. But it wasn't anxiety anymore, it was clarity. A cold, clear awareness that my life was under attack. Not by accident, but by design. And I had no choice left but to respond. I was still sitting in the living room, holding that group photo Melanie gave me, when I got the email. It was just past midnight. I hadn't moved in hours, hadn't eaten, hadn't spoken, hadn't even turned the lights on. I was staring at that image like it might shift or blink or speak, like maybe some hidden meaning would rise from the grainy pixels and offer me something. Hope, clarity, maybe even closure. Instead, what I got was something far worse. The subject line was simple. You need to know what she's doing next. No sender name. No contact info. Just a Gmail address made of random letters and numbers. The kind you create when you don't want to be found. There was no message in the body. Just one attachment. A PDF. Against my better judgment, against every voice in my head that screamed, "Do not click this," I opened it. The document looked like a draft of a legal complaint. Against me. It was structured like a formal report. Dated, footnoted, formatted like a lawyer had already touched it. It listed claims of emotional distress, controlling behavior, coercive surveillance, and, most chilling of all, the suggestion that Leona feared for her safety due to recent unstable behavior exhibited by the respondent. The respondent was me. It even mentioned the party. Rewritten as a desperate attempt by Leona to end things in a safe, neutral environment. Only for me to invade the premises in a threatening and erratic manner. I had to read that line 3 times to process the language. They made her affair sound like a strategic escape from abuse. And they made me sound like a man on the edge. There were placeholders in the document, spots for witness statements, references to private messages. And it ended with a draft motion to request a restraining order if the subject continues exhibiting unstable behavior. My blood ran cold. I wasn't just being painted as a bad husband anymore. I was being rewritten as a danger, a threat. And if this thing was submitted, if she actually went through with it, she could ruin my entire life with a few paragraphs and a courtroom date. My job, my reputation, my record, all of it would be stained. Even if I proved it was a lie, the smear would stick. It always does. I paced the kitchen, heart pounding in a way that didn't feel like anxiety anymore. It felt like warning. Like some primal part of my brain was waking up and screaming, "You are not safe here. Do something." But what could I do? I couldn't go to the police, not without sounding paranoid. I couldn't show anyone the flash drive or the screenshots or the anonymous email without admitting I'd been digging. I had no lawyer, no plan, no idea how to fight a woman who could lie so beautifully that people would want to believe her over me. I did the only thing I could think of. I replied to the email. "Who are you? Why are you helping me?" No answer. Not right away. I sat up the entire night watching that inbox like it was the only thing keeping me alive. Around 3:42 a.m., a new message appeared. Same sender. No subject. This time, there was a message inside. Because she did the same thing to my brother. He didn't survive it. No name. No signature. Just that. I felt my breath catch in my throat. I read it again and again, trying to find some hidden meaning, some indication that this was fake or exaggerated. But it didn't read like fiction. It read like fact. It read like someone else out there had been blindsided by the same smile, the same manipulation, the same cold exit strategy that left no fingerprints behind. Leona was smart, strategic. And if she had done this before, if someone had died because of her games, then what she was doing to me now wasn't a fluke. It was a pattern. That's when I remembered something Evan had said. Something I had brushed off at the time. You think Julian's the first? He's just the one she let you find. What if he wasn't just talking about cheating? What if he was talking about victims? I stayed up until the sun came up, digging, searching every name I could think of. Reddit, forums, obituaries, LinkedIn profiles. But there was nothing. Whoever this brother was, his story had been buried. Quietly, efficiently, and completely. Just like mine was about to be. And that's when I made a decision. No more waiting. No more hoping she'd back off. No more thinking I could quietly survive the storm. If Leona wanted a war, then I was going to start by finding every person she hurt before me and drag her truth into the light. The strange thing about hitting rock bottom is, it's quieter than you'd expect. No flashing lights, no breaking glass, just the sound of your own heartbeat when there's nothing left to lose. But once I decided to stop hiding, to stop protecting someone who was actively trying to destroy me, something in me changed. I started reaching out, discreetly, quietly. I contacted old colleagues, former acquaintances, even distant names mentioned once in Leona's passing stories. People she'd ghosted, ex-friends she'd written off, co-workers who had drifted apart. I wasn't digging for gossip. I was looking for patterns. And the patterns came quickly. One woman, a former assistant at her old agency, told me Leona once framed a rival for leaking client data just to secure a promotion. Another man said she had convinced his business partner to sever ties after planting false rumors about embezzlement. None of them went public. She was always too careful, too smart. But something changed when I showed them the draft legal complaint with my name on it. When I read them the line, "I just need him to catch me. After that, I'm free," stopped being about me. It became about all of us. The anonymous emailer eventually revealed themselves. Her name was Clara. Her brother, the one who didn't survive it, had taken his life 3 years ago after Leona launched a near-identical smear campaign. Clara had tried to fight back then, but without hard proof, her efforts went nowhere. She'd been watching quietly ever since, waiting for Leona to slip. I was the slip. With Clara's help, I built a quiet case. Not legal, not yet, but social. I didn't aim to ruin Leona. I didn't even speak her name publicly. I just started posting small, anonymous accounts online. Our story, our timeline, our truth. And to my shock, people responded. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with recognition. Stories poured in from strangers about similar betrayals, manipulations, twisted narratives. Suddenly I wasn't alone. And then came the most unexpected call. Julian. Yes, that Julian. He asked to meet. Said he had something to give me. Part of me thought it was a trap. But I went. We met in a public park. He looked nothing like he did at that party. The swagger was gone. He looked drained. I didn't know, he said. Not all of it. She told me you were abusive. I believed her. He handed me a USB stick. She made recordings, voice clips, edited. She planned to use them if you ever tried to go to court. But I backed them up before she wiped the originals. I took it, unsure if I should thank him or scream at him. But in the end, I just nodded. That flash drive was the final nail. Not in her coffin, but in mine. Because with it, I could finally bury the man she was trying to create. The monster, the paranoid freak, the emotionally unstable husband. That man was never real. And now I had proof. I never pressed charges. I didn't go public. I didn't sue. I didn't destroy her. I simply walked away. She moved out of the state a few weeks later. I heard through mutual contacts she tried to pull something similar with someone new, But this time it didn't work. Maybe because people were finally watching. As for me, I moved into a smaller place. I started seeing a therapist regularly. I went back to writing, something I hadn't done since college. And I even rescued a dog named Spencer who's somehow smarter than most people I know. Life's not perfect, but it's mine again. And for the first time in years, I don't feel afraid to tell my story. Because stories are how we take our power back. Thank you for watching this story on Reddit Confessions. If you've ever experienced anything even remotely like this, betrayal, manipulation, or someone rewriting your truth, share it in the comments below. Let's create a space where truth can't be silenced. And if you enjoyed this series, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more real stories that hit deep. We'll see you next time.